and welcome to the debate. I'm your host Maqbool with you at PTV World. In today's show, we're going to be taking a look at the important stories around the world and, of course, what is going on within Pakistan in terms of its domestic situation and its regional connectivity as well. The first topic is going to focus on the unfortunate flooding that has occurred due to the past few days rainfall that has occurred in Pakistan, and we know that there has been an emergency that has been declared in Punjab, as many people have lost their lives. About 63 reportedly have lost their lives just today, as far as 292 people are reportedly injured just today. And we know that since June 26, when these rainfalls began as part of the monsoon season, many other lives have also been lost, over the 100. And this is, of course, very important in terms of the kind of preparations and measures that need to be taken by both the federal government and then the Punjab government and other provinces as well, to take a look at what the current scenario is and how to prevent these floodings. There's also, of course, concern with reference to the river Nala Lai, which is, of course, something very integral every time we speak about these flooding situations. And so we know that many people have been relocated, but at the same time, what is going to be the situation like in the next few days is something, of course, a matter of concern, and we need to be, of course, fully prepared to deal with these situations, and as this is something Pakistan is a part of in terms of being part of a region that is prone to climate change and climate-induced disasters, as back in 2022 also a vast area of Pakistan was flooded. And so this is something very important, both in terms of what we do internally and then what is expected in terms of the general fight against climate change by the international community. That is going to be our focus in the first segment. Our next one is going to take a look at Pakistan's regional activities and the kind of movement forward that Pakistan is going ahead with. And we know that Pakistan, Afghanistan and Uzbekistan have signed a framework agreement on a joint feasibility study as part of railway connectivity that will then connect Pakistan and Central Asian states via Afghanistan. This is particularly important in terms of how, of course, Afghanistan's situation is going to be also at play, but then again, Pakistan's own connectivity expanding in the region and, of course, helping trade and investment ties. How exactly will that happen, and what will be the way forward as part of this railway network? And, of course, the result of these feasibility studies is very important and integral to the way that we're going to move forward. That's going to be our focus in the second segment of the show today. For this and more, as always, in the studios, I've been joined by senior analyst Farrukh Pitafi and Raja Faisal. And for our first segment, we've also been joined by Ms. Imrana Tiwana, who's an environmentalist, architect, and she's, of course, an expert in the current situation. We'd love to hear more about what is the way forward when we talk about flooding and rainwater situations, especially in urban areas, and the way to move forward with that. But in terms of how we actually want to see these changes, Farrukh, I want your take in terms of what is the ways that we can actually prevent these situations. I understand now we're in this situation at the moment, and we're talking about measures to be taken. But how do we prevent them? Because we know many times before this has happened, and we, of course, are prone to such disasters. So what it is that we can do beforehand?
Right, Sana, thank you very much for the question. I think that the first thing that you have to realize is that this year, rains have been extraordinary, right? And there was a moment earlier when one thought that maybe God forbid, we are going to see something similar to what happened in 2022, because if you remember, 1/3 of Pakistan was submerged because of those rains. But there seems to be some care being taken of those areas, especially far-flung areas in Balochistan, in Sindh, elsewhere. And we seem to have improved our drainage process. But when it comes to urban areas, Sana, because of the population density, we haven't been able to actually redesign the cities. We haven't been able to improve upon the drainage problem. And then we saw that in places like Chakwal, where you actually had a cloud burst, their situation got really dire. Elsewhere as well, in Lahore, in Rawalpindi for that matter, we have seen various places being submerged. So what we need to do is, while we keep on focusing on improving our climate related infrastructure, urban side needs to also be addressed. They are the earlier last time we discussed these matters. It wasn't because of floods. It was because of smog in Lahore. At that time, it seemed that finally the government of Punjab had actually taken care of the matter and somehow it was handled. But these things, these challenges from the sky, they will keep on coming. You were absolutely right. Pakistan is on the list of most vulnerable countries. Pakistan is on, I think, number 8. It is in any case part of the first 10. And before Pakistan, most of the countries that are vulnerable, not only in in rains, in smog, in winters, but also in heat. Pakistan is the only populous country. Before Pakistan, other countries are usually with very small populations. So Pakistani government, Punjab government, Sindh government, Balochistan, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa government, Kashmir government, Gilgit-Baltistan government, they all need to address the population growth, and because of that population growth, the higgledy-piggledy growth of infrastructure in all cities. If that is not taken care of, Sana, we saw a sad incident in Karachi also, where a structure recently collapsed. Similarly, when you talk about Punjab in the past 24 hours, I was reading, I have no way to actually confirm this, but at least 63 people have died. So this is not acceptable, and there has to be a better way to approach all that. Of course, you will need monies, you will need population replanning, population readjustment in urban centers, but there has to be a time, and the time has come to take care of all these matters.
Absolutely. We've also been joined in the debate by Ms. Imrana Tiwana. Thank you very much, Ms. Imrana, for being a part of the discussion. And I want your take, of course, in terms of your expert analysis, what is going on at the current moment in terms of the kind of measures that Pakistan could have taken, should have taken, and the ways that we can actually move forward in a more organized and structured way as to combat and fight these issues and battle them. I know that rescue operations, of course, are underway. But in terms of the kind of development, the kind of planning that is needed, and the kind of decisions that need to be laid on the ground to provide that mitigation for the people of Pakistan, do you think that necessary work has been put in, especially post 2022, where we suffered a huge loss?
Thank you so much, Sana. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I will answer your questions, and there is much to be said. But before that, I just want to say that what we were fearing for years, the climate change impacts, nature has finally unleashed its power. And we are in an unprecedented global and national climate crisis emergency, which we should have, anticipated and done something about. I would just like to, before we get on to what has caused this and what the solutions are, I'd just like to take a moment of silence for the damages that have been done, the villages, Chakwal, all the cities that are now in an emergency, the people who have passed away, and may the people in hospitals and the ones injured be given health. So I would just like to quickly put this in context. The Panwal Chhota Dam, which actually Chakwal has 22 small dams, and this is one of them, where we've had about 470 millimeters of rain, which is about 17 inches. Now, the spread of this burst has gone as far as Rawalpindi and Islamabad, which is 80 kilometers away. So you can imagine the intensity of this downpour and the bursting of this dam, where hundreds of villages are now in severe emergency. The Atak, Pakpatan, Jhelum, the Atak Shahpur Dam has also burst. Rescue 1122 and NDMA are working hard on it. There is a flood alert today for Jhelum and Mangla dams. Now, having said this, I feel that we, living in the world we do today with so much at our disposal. I mean, the whole world is now living with AI, and AI has predictive capacities. Why are we in a situation where there is a human health emergency? And like it was said earlier, Lahore has been in a health emergency for a few years now. Small children are on ventilators, and this is all because of climate change. So, just a few things to understand what we can do to anticipate this and to mitigate it and ensure that we do not lose any more lives. We also know that Pakistan is the country that has the most amount of glaciers in the world, and we were very anticipating that the glacial melts. We have had flooding, like you said, in 2022, but the Chakwal flooding and downpour has been unprecedented. So, first of all, like it was said earlier, the federal and provincial levels have to have integrated early warning systems, and we can do this through AI, through GIS mapping. There has to be hazard mapping. You know, there are two projects, the Living Indus project, and there is another project where we need to activate these through the Ministry of Climate Change federally and both so that it trickles down to the four provinces and GB. We need to do hazard mapping. Now, hazard mapping is something that is predictive. We know which areas are vulnerable. So once we have a hazard map and we put the NDMA and we let the communities know, I think that we can mitigate this quite well. The infrastructure, this was talked about earlier, that there need to be new bylaws whereby there is no permission to make any construction or agricultural land where the vulnerable hazard mapping areas are zoned. Other than this, every year there has to be a physical and engineering check for all the dams so that we know that the nalas and everything else that goes from the dams are open. There needs to be flood management commissions, national flood protection plans like watershed management plans. You know, Sana, this is not business as usual. The entire development paradigm has completely changed. You know, this is not what we could predict like even a year ago. So the development paradigm now has to be based on nature and ecosystems if we are to survive as a planet. Because what we have seen with the Chukwal disaster will be repeated over and over again. And Pakistan being the fifth most vulnerable country, I would urge the minister, Musaddiq Hussain Saab, and you know, we have a very good minister in the Punjab, Mariam Aurangzeb Saiba, who herself is an environmentalist. So I would urge that our paradigm shift in everything that we do for development in cities. After all, they are for people. And if we cannot give our people basic human rights like clean water, clean air, avoid heat islands, cle- we are then miserably failing the democratic system of Pakistan. I mean, if people are so vulnerable, then we need to look at you mentioned policies. So there's the early warning systems where we put in gauges and radars. These can be AI modeled. Then there is land use regulation. It's very important to bring in new bylaws where these regulations come into place. The monsoon rains and evacuation program, which is based on a multi pronged effort, which means that the communities are warned through the early warning system and the hazard mapping system, the infrastructure development and the zoning systems, which are going to be new. And once we have an integrated, you know, what we call in cities a master plan, we need a master action plan for all of Pakistan. This is not just for one city. This needs to be done immediately with immediate effect for all of Pakistan, where we know at the touch of a button, these are the hazard areas, these are the early warning systems, these are the communities we need to evacuate, these are the communities we need to inform. So the multi-pronged approach, I think, is extremely important. And there needs to be a network, a very strong network of monitoring and emergency predicting decks. Now, by a deck, I mean a system which can be connected throughout the country, where on the click of a button, you have a network which then becomes aware through its provincial governments, which then trickle down to the local bodies and the union councils and the villages to inform everyone that we are having an unprecedented disaster warning in this area. This is where I believe that the NDMA has to be strengthened and much more. I mean, there is only that much that they can do. Double one, double two is trying its best. They're led by a very competent CEO, but there is only that much that they can do. We have been saying for years that we need to prioritize climate change because we talk about economic growth, we talk about development, which is all very well and we fully support it. But how can any country prosper or have any kind of economic development if we don't look at all these things?
Absolutely, and I understand that. But Ms. Imrana, when we take a look at why all of this hasn't happened so far, especially when we talk about emphasis on data collection or mapping, as you were earlier mentioning, do you think that it's because our approach is more outward than inward when we're talking about climate change? There is a lot of demands of climate change justice, and I understand fairly so because there is a sense of responsibility that needs to be there in the so-called global north, or those who are contributing more to climate change. But when we talk about the efforts towards that, do you think that that is something that we need to focus more on, or is it what we can do inward or within our own resources or within our own country should take priority?
And Imrana, if you can also shed some light
Yeah.
on, yeah, Imrana, if you could also shed some light on, there is another aspect, and that is of urban planning. When it comes to even the private housing societies, I mean, there was water problems there as well after this rain. And if we talk about rain, I mean, the magnitude of rain that takes place in the Western countries, especially in UK, it's almost every day raining there. But when it comes to their management, it's so perfect that you could never see even a puddle around that could cause a hazard to the people. But here it's entirely different. So it has almost, a lot to do with the urban planning and the way permissions are being awarded to people to build houses wherever they want. I think that needs to be fixed as well.
Absolutely, you're spot on, and I totally agree with you. Uh, they can the focus and priority right now seems to be on development projects with a disregard to understanding the vulnerability of those exact projects. I mean, when we talk of land use regulation, zoning, and planning, for example, in Islamabad, there has been a new underpass near Serena Hotel, which you're aware of. And I believe it has been reported that it's been flooded and that flood has gone into the diplomatic enclave. Now, this is exactly what you were saying, that we are forgetting, the forest looking at the trees. We don't have a choice today. We absolutely don't have a choice today. When there are people involved, their lives, socially, economically, and otherwise, when their homes, they become refugees in their own homes because we do not have, like you said, in England, because there is an integrated management system, we need to put all our priority onto managing and understanding how to create the system. It's not difficult to do. We have the expertise, we have the capacity, we have the technology, right? So there is no reason that it can't be done. And I would strongly say that within the next 3 to 6 months, the federal government, along with the provincial governments, must put into place an immediate emergency action plan for climate mitigation with hazard mapping and emergency response plans, also SOPs for citizen awareness and what to do where it actually becomes uncontrollable. I mean, you know what happened with the Atabad disaster when the glaciers melted and the other floods that we've had. Sometimes there is very little that we can do, but we can mitigate it. So I think that if we go, I would say that there are two things which need to be immediately prioritized. One is the mapping and the hazard plan. The federal government can lead it, the Ministry of Climate Change, in coalition with the four provinces and GB. And then, of course, the SOPs that need to be followed, the NDMA again. I think that unless communities, the organizations like the NDMA, 1122, are strengthened 100% more, and we have the SOPs and we have the integrated evacuation plans, we cannot afford to lose a single life. I mean, we haven't even spoken about the agricultural damage, right? About the cattle and the animals that we have lost. This directly, one doesn't realize this, but this directly impacts the economy of our country. And if we cannot have a basic right to life under the Constitution, Article 9 gives you a right to life. If we don't have this, what sort of development progress are we talking about? So I would just end by saying that this is extremely urgent. We cannot turn our face away. And Sana, you brought up a very important and critical point: is this inward or outward? My answer to that is it is both inward and outward. The whole world needs to realize that, we are emitting about 1% of world emissions, but we are the fifth most vulnerable country. So the point is that the world has to look outward. We have to look inward and outward, and there has to be a coalition of support for climate change. The South, the North, the West, everyone needs to come together because it's a matter of generations to come. It's a matter of our children. It's a matter of our homes. We don't want the world to become a refugee state, right? This is something we
Absolutely.
can't, which is a matter of our survival now.
Absolutely. And you're right that we are all basically sitting on the same rock. So we should be taking care of each other as well. But earlier you were talking about early warning systems. At that time, one thing stood out that you actually spoke about the need to automate it or to use AI. Now, that could have been a solution in countries where they don't have the kind of labor or the kind of workforce we have, which is out of a job. Is there a reason why you have actually spoken about that? Because I think that perhaps jobs could also be created and human beings could also be 24/7 be part of that system to ensure that nothing untoward happens.
Yes, you have a very good point here. It's very relevant, very pertinent, and my answer to that is that in today's world, with the unprecedented impacts that we're facing, we need to use every resource that we have. Look, AI is not going to give you the resource. It's not going to give you men or robots who are going to go out and start working in the field, right? AI is a tool that is faster than any tool that we've had so far in the history of mankind. And so when I talk about predictive analysis, AI is just going to tell us things that we humanly could not do in years, right? Then it is up to us, the human resource and capacity, to enable what AI has told us very quickly into action plans. So I think that yes, we need both, and we definitely need to have a balance between human resource and technology. And I think that's the big question these days. How are we going to bring about that balance? But as far as climate change is concerned, I mean, it's a very sad day for me to see the videos and the media coverage of what is happening in Chakmal and these villages. We have had the army brought out because there is an emergency today. I mean, it is unthinkable and very, very sad. So there is no time for emotion here. I think this is the time to act, and the time to act is now.
Right. Thank you very much, Ms. Imrana, for joining us and
Thank
sharing
you.
your views with us on the debate. It's a pleasure having you. We're now going to be taking a look at our next segment that focuses on regional connectivity with Pakistan, Afghanistan, and Uzbekistan signing a very important framework agreement. And Faisal, your take on this first in terms of the link through Afghanistan that we're getting to as a Central Asian states. How does that impact both Afghanistan and Pakistan in terms of the economic relations in the region, and then, of course, opening up more avenues for trade?
Oh yes, and obviously when we talk about this particular plan of UAP, Uzbekistan, Afghanistan, and Pakistan, as is the name suggests, and if we highlight one aspect, and that is the better connectivity between Pakistan and the Central Asian republics, I think this is the best step forward. Why I'm saying this particular connectivity, it is going to go through the major cities of Afghanistan like Kabul, Jalalabad, and then Mazar Sharif, and from Mazar Sharif it would enter into Uzbekistan. Why it is important for Afghanistan as well? Because it is going to open many avenues of opportunities for Afghanistan and people of Afghanistan. And when we talk about these two countries, landlocked countries, I think it's a brilliant opportunity for them to, of course, have a smooth trade from the Arabian Sea. Of course, Gwadar is one of the pivotal landmark which Pakistan has achieved, and CPAC being the backbone of Pakistan's economy for the coming future, it is definitely going to connect with the CPAC, and once it connects with the CPAC, it is a smooth sailing for Afghanistan as well as Uzbekistan. And what I'm thinking about is, to start with, it is going to be UAP, but in future it might circle around all of the Central Asian republics, and this is going to be pivotal for the trade between Central Asian republics and Pakistan, and the connectivity as well. We have always lacked that when it comes to Central Asian republics, and this window, when it opens towards the Central Asian republics through Afghanistan, I think it would change the mindset of Afghanistan as well, in context of, we know that decades after decades they have been involved in conflicts. Now it is time for them as well to put the guns down and take up the tools and start working and find the opportunities, and once they are having the opportunities, try a new life, and you will find better life. And when we talk about the north of Pakistan getting connected with Uzbekistan through Afghanistan, it too is a huge opportunity for people of Pakistan as well, in terms of the trade. We all know that Peshawar happens to be hub, and it is very well known even in Central Asian republics as well, that Peshawar is a hub of trade. And Peshawar, after getting many of the products from within Pakistan and from throughout the world, it can simply transfer them towards the Central Asian republics, and it can become, for Pakistan, Peshawar city can become a hub of trade for the Central Asian republics. And to me, I think it is a kind of win-win situation for all of the countries, and overall the biggest contribution and the beneficiary of this will be Afghanistan. Reason being, of course, it is going to open up many avenues in terms of opportunities for people of Afghanistan, and that's what we need to create right now.
Right. And Farrukh, when we talk about the regional dynamics, particularly in terms of links that can be established within the region, what sort of role will be played by Pakistan in providing that avenue, and of course involving key regional players, particularly given the kind of circumstances, for example, Afghanistan is in?
Right, Sana, I think that at this moment, first of all, let us praise the development. At least allow me to actually praise that. Then I should also comment on Faisal's flight of fancy.
Yeah.
This is the launch or the joint feasibility report of a project, and Faisal has already actually built the entire.
Actually, we have been discussing
that's the hope. Well, that is the hope.
Network, and then connected with CPAC and God knows what else. Look, there are three things. One, if you've been to Uzbekistan, it is heavenly place, beautiful place.
Samarkand.
Samarkand, Bukhara, right? If you actually read Baburnama, he used to cry at the idea that he left that beautiful place and ended up in India, right? And I think that since 1991-92, we have been talking about this connectivity with Central Asia. Of course, Afghanistan was in bad shape. Then all of a sudden, Pakistan was also in bad shape. But now things are looking up, and I think that it is great news. I hope that this happens. Uzbek people are some of the most beautiful people, kind, sweetest hosts in the world, right? And they have these natural resources, and it will be an honor for both Afghanistan and Pakistan to connect them to hot waters, because it has been, since Peter the Great, it has been a dream that Russia's sphere of influence connects with hot waters on this side. And of course, then we can look at the feasibility of convergence of CPAC with what is being called the Eurasian bloc, right? Essentially, Uzbekistan is part of the Eurasian bloc. Whether they will converge or not, I don't know. But Pakistan can work as a funnel for the entire region, where we can actually think about the kind of changes that are needed. Afghanistan is cash poor, it needs money. Uzbekistan is not cash poor, it is resource rich, but even then their true potential is not being realized because of their lack of connectivity, right? These are, especially Afghanistan is a landlocked country. So if trade routes open through that, and if we are able to provide them with the kind of energy or economic stability that they need, then usually what happens, development changes the dynamics on the ground. Especially remember that new projects always create new jobs, and because of that, so many people can be brought back into the economic activity, which seems to have actually stalled since Afghan Taliban took over. So this is great news. Of course, there are spoilers who are going to create problem. We know about the country with temper tantrums in India, and they keep on trying to spoil everything. But luckily, because Russia will also be pleased with the idea, I think that in coming days we will see that India won't be able to mess up things the way it has been doing in the past. All you have to wait and look at is how quickly this feasibility study actually comes to fruition. Remember that recently when we were talking about the scope of SEO, and then we spoke about the scope of ECO, right, ECO. At that time also the most important emphasis was connectivity, and this region having so much potential, population, energy, resources, but unfortunately we haven't been able to click together. Now, because of this progress, I think that we have this hope that we might be able to bring that into reality. I hope that happens, because I want to, and by the way, there's some magic. Of course, most of it will be cargo transportation, but when it comes to rail links, there's something magical about travel on trains. So I want to actually travel from here to Bukhara, Samarkand on trains as well.
That would be something, definitely. Thank you, Farrukh, and thank you, Faisal, for joining us in the debate. As always, we of course hope to see more regional connectivity flourishing and more change happen for not just Pakistan but the entire region. That's all from today. We'll now see you tomorrow.